All right, so are you tired of sending out endless job applications and just waiting around? Wouldn't it be amazing to just skip all that and go straight to landing interviews?
Absolutely.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Sounds exciting.
Instant interviewing. It's all about making instant connections and taking control of your job search.
Love it.
We'll be exploring some really unique tactics, some might even say a little magical, but trust me, they're all about getting you results.
I'm intrigued already.
This deep dive is based on the book Instant Interviewing, 101 Ways to Get the Interview and Now W by Carol Martin.
Okay, so what's the main idea behind instant interviewing?
Well, it's really about flipping the script on traditional job hunting.
Yeah.
Instead of desperately searching for a job, you're confidently securing the interview.
Interesting.
So you're not just passively submitting resumes and hoping for the best, you're actively showcasing your value and creating opportunities.
So it's more about taking control.
Exactly. You become the solution to an employer's problem.
That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is. And think about it, traditional resumes and applications, they often get lost in the shuffle. They don't really let your personality or your problem-solving abilities shine through.
Yeah, that's...
Instant interviewing is about bypassing that system and connecting directly with the decision makers.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this could be a game changer.
Absolutely. So let's dive into some of the tactics that make this approach so effective. The first one is called the magic for hello, and it's all about capturing attention right from the start.
Okay. Magic for hello? I like the sound of that.
It's a specific script that you can use when reaching out to potential employers.
Oh, like a magic formula.
Kind of. It's designed to pique their curiosity and make them want to learn more.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The script goes something like this. Hi, offerer's name. This is your name. I have a background in your field and wanted to discuss how I can help company name with specific company challenge.
That's interesting. You're not leading with your needs or asking for a job.
Nope. You're immediately framing yourself as someone who can help them solve a problem.
And by mentioning a specific company challenge, you're showing that you've done your research.
Right. You're not just sending out a generic message. You're tailoring your approach to their specific needs.
That makes a lot of sense. It shows that you're genuinely interested in helping them, not just looking for any job.
Exactly. Okay, so once you have their attention, the next step is to steer the conversation in a direction that leads to an interview, and that's where the concept of contracted words comes in.
Contracted words. Okay, you're going to have to explain this one.
Sure. So it's a really interesting technique that taps into the psychology of agreement.
Okay, how so?
You use words that end in NT or can't when asking questions, and this subtly influences the offerer towards a positive response.
Interesting. So it's like you're planting seeds of agreement without them even realizing it.
Exactly. For example, instead of asking, is it possible to bring someone on board now? You could ask, wouldn't it make sense to bring someone on board now before the situation escalates?
Wow, that's a much stronger way to phrase it.
Right. You're subtly suggesting that hiring you is the logical solution to their problem.
And it avoids creating a situation where they can easily say no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for another tactic?
Hit me with it.
This one is called the Saturday slip.
Saturday slip? What's that all about?
It's a bold move, but it can be incredibly effective if done right.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's all about bypassing the gatekeepers and connecting directly with the hiring manager.
Going straight to the source. I like it.
The idea is that offices are often less guarded on weekends. So instead of going through the traditional channels, you're reaching out directly when they might be more relaxed and open to a conversation.
So you're calling the hiring manager directly on a Saturday morning.
Well, ideally, you'd plant the seed on a Friday afternoon when they're already thinking about the weekend. You keep it brief, highlight your skills, and then offer to swing by the office on Saturday for a quick chat.
Wow, that's pretty daring, but I can see how it could work. You're catching them off guard and demonstrating initiative.
Exactly, and you're creating an opportunity for a more relaxed and informal interview.
Okay, that one is definitely going in my playbook.
Now remember, all of these tactics are just tools. The key to success is tailoring your approach to the specific company and industry.
Right, it's like a detective game.
Yeah.
You need to do your research, understand their needs, and position yourself as the solution they've been searching for.
Exactly. Research is key. Before you even think about using these tactics, you need to understand the company's culture, their challenges, and the specific skills they're looking for.
Okay, so research first, then strategize.
Now let's talk about some unconventional tactics for grabbing attention. The source material lists 20 ways to jolt overworked offers into action, but we can focus on a few key strategies that really stand out.
Okay, let's hear them.
One tactic that caught my eye was dressing up for your interactions with potential employers, even if it's just a phone call.
Dressing up for a phone call, really?
It might seem counterintuitive, but there's actually some interesting psychology behind it.
How?
By dressing up, you're putting yourself in a more confident and professional mindset, and that energy translates even over the phone.
Interesting. So it's like sending a nonverbal message that you're taking this seriously.
Exactly. And it can also help you stand out from the crowd.
In a world where everyone is trying to be casual,
Yeah.
dressing up shows that you're willing to go the extra mile.
Another tactic that I found intriguing was the idea of setting deadlines to create a sense of urgency.
Ooh, deadlines. I like that.
It can be a powerful tool, especially if you're dealing with offerers who are notoriously slow to make decisions.
So you're giving them a little nudge.
More like a gentle push. You're saying, hey, I'm a valuable commodity, and I'm not going to wait around forever.
It shows that you're confident and in demand.
Okay, are you ready for a really unconventional one?
Bring it on.
The source material calls it using your pen as a magic wand.
Okay, now you've got me curious. Tell me more about this magic wand technique.
It's all about using your pen to direct the conversation and elicit responses from the offerer.
Using a pen as a tool for communication.
For example, if you're asking a question, you can hold your pen up as if you're waiting for them to write down the answer.
Interesting.
Or, if you're making a statement, you can tap your pen on the table to emphasize a key point.
So it's like a nonverbal way to keep them engaged.
Exactly. It might seem like a small thing, but these subtle gestures can have a big impact on how you're perceived.
They add a level of dynamism to your communication.
Now, all of these tactics are great for grabbing attention, but we can't forget about the importance of building relationships, and that's where the concept of the secretarial secret service comes in.
Ah, yes, the often forgotten gatekeepers.
Exactly. They're the ones who often screen calls, manage schedules, and control access to the decision makers.
They wield a lot of power.
They do. So it's crucial to treat them with respect and recognize their influence.
Makes sense.
They often have insights that even the offerer might not be aware of.
And they're constantly observing how you interact with everyone.
So be polite, be friendly, and make them your fans.
Great advice.
And don't forget to send them a thank you note after your interaction.
It's a small gesture that goes a long way.
Okay, so we've talked about grabbing attention and building relationships, but what about making a truly impressive entrance? That's where the icon introduction letter comes in.
Okay, an icon introduction letter. What is that?
It's all about leveraging the power of social proof and credibility.
So like name dropping.
Kind of, but it's more than that. Imagine having a respected figure in your field writing a letter of introduction for you.
Wow, that would definitely open some doors.
It's like having a VIP pass to the interview.
I could see how that would be powerful.
The letter should be tailored to appeal to senior executives, highlighting your skills and experience in a way that resonates with their needs and goals.
Okay, and what about the all-important PS?
That's where you pack in the hardest sell, urging the offerer to take action and speak with you directly.
So you're using the icon's credibility to make a direct appeal.
Exactly. Now remember, all of these tactics are just pieces of the puzzle. The key to instant interviewing is to approach the job search with a new mindset.
It's not just about landing any job. It's about finding work that you're passionate about, work that aligns with your values and talents.
And that passion is what will ultimately shine through in your interactions with offers. It's about finding that sweet spot where your skills meet their needs and creating a win-win situation for everyone involved.
I love that approach.
So are you ready to ditch the traditional job search and embrace the power of instant interviewing?
I'm definitely intrigued. Let's keep exploring these tactics.
Great, because in the next part of this deep dive, we'll be uncovering even more unconventional strategies for jolting those overworked offers into action and building a powerful support network to help you land your dream job.
I can't wait.
So we talked about some pretty creative ways to stand out right from the start and grab an offerer's attention. But what about when you're talking to someone who seems like super busy? Like they're just swamped.
Yeah, those are tough.
The book talks about jolting these overworked offers into action. Any tips there that really stand out to you?
Yeah, there are a few that I think are really effective, and they all kind of play on a similar idea, like disrupting their routine and making them actually see you.
So it's like shaking them out of autopilot and realizing that you're not just another face in the crowd.
Right, exactly. One that I've found that works really well is setting a deadline.
Ooh, deadlines.
Yeah, you can just casually mention that you have other interviews lined up and you need to make a decision soon.
Yeah, that makes sense. It creates a sense of urgency without being too pushy.
Exactly, and it kind of subtly shifts the power dynamic a little bit,
Yeah.
puts you in a position of strength.
I like it.
Another one that I like is strategically mentioning other companies that you're interviewing with, especially if they're competitors.
Ah, the competitor card.
It's classic for a reason.
It
It
is.
kind of plays on their competitive instincts.
No one wants to lose out to their rivals.
Right, and it also positions you as someone who's in demand, which makes you even more desirable.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've talked about jolting those busy offers into action, but what about tapping into a network of people who can kind of help you find those hidden job opportunities? The book talks about creating a team of instant interview investigators.
Hmm.
What is that all about?
Yeah, I love this idea. It's about recognizing that you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, for sure.
You can have a team of people who are rooting for you and helping you along the way.
So it's like your own personal job hunting squad.
Exactly. Think of it as your A team. They're your cheerleaders, your connectors, your advisors.
I love that. Okay, so how do we build this dream team?
Well, it starts with brainstorming.
Right.
Think of every adult that you know, both personally and professionally.
Okay, so family, friends,
Yeah.
former colleagues, mentors.
Exactly. And don't forget people you've met at networking events or even online.
Cast a wide net.
Exactly. Once you have that list, start thinking about who has the most influence and who's most likely to actually help.
Okay, so someone who's well-connected in your industry or just someone who's always willing to go the extra mile for others.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's all about communication. Reach out to each person, explain your situation, and ask for their help.
And be clear about what you're looking for, the type of companies you're interested in, the skills you want to showcase.
And remember, most people actually want to help, especially if you approach them in the right way.
Yeah, for sure.
Express your gratitude, be respectful of their time, keep them updated on your progress.
The book also talks about turning your job search into a game. What do you think about that?
I love that idea. It makes the whole process a lot more fun and engaging.
Right.
It can also be a great way to motivate your team of instant interview investigators.
True, true.
You can have a little contest. The person who helps you land the best interview wins a prize, or you could keep a leaderboard of who's generated the most leads.
Oh, that's fun. I like that.
Right, just inject a little bit of fun into the process.
Okay, so we've talked about building that support network, but what about those times when you need to gather information or make connections with people who are kind of higher up in the food chain? The book talks about becoming an industry mole.
Ah, yes. The art of stealth job hunting.
It sounds a little sneaky.
It's not about being deceptive. It's more about being resourceful and finding creative ways to get your foot in the door.
So instead of just applying for jobs online, you're kind of positioning yourself as someone who's already plugged into the industry.
Right. One way to do this is to adopt the persona of a reporter, someone who's gathering information for an article or a blog post.
So you're creating a reason to reach out to those industry leaders.
Exactly. You could say, hey, I'm writing an article about insert industry topic, and I'd love to get your insights.
Ah, so you're turning the tables and interviewing them.
In a way, yes, but it's not about being manipulative. It's about genuinely wanting to learn from them and building a relationship.
And who knows, one of those conversations might even lead to an instant interview opportunity.
Exactly. You never know where these connections might lead.
Okay, let's talk about a topic that can be a little bit awkward, interviewing for a raise. How does instant interviewing apply here?
It's still about being proactive and confident, but it's also about being strategic and prepared.
Okay, so it's not just about walking into your boss's office and saying, I deserve a raise.
Right. You need to have a plan. You need to have data. You need to be able to articulate your value.
The book recommends creating a raise list. What is that exactly?
It's a document that outlines all of your accomplishments and contributions to the company. It's like a highlight reel of your awesomeness.
Ooh, I like that.
It's not just about listing your job duties. It's about quantifying your contributions and highlighting specific achievements.
So instead of saying, I'm a hard worker, you're saying, I increased sales by 15% in the last quarter.
Exactly. And you're backing it up with data and examples.
Okay, so you've got your raise list. You're ready to have the conversation. Any tips for approaching your boss in a way that increases your chances of success?
First and foremost, remember those instant interviewing principles. Be confident, be proactive, and frame yourself as a solution.
So instead of saying, I need a raise, you're saying, I'm ready to take on more responsibility, or I'm excited to contribute even more to the team's success.
Exactly. You're positioning yourself as a valuable asset and demonstrating your commitment to the company's growth.
And remember, it's a negotiation. Be prepared to present your case. Listen to their feedback and find a compromise that works for both parties.
Right. It's about finding that win-win solution.
Now let's talk about another potentially sensitive situation, interviewing when you have a disability.
This is an important topic because it's about advocating for yourself and making sure that you're judged on your abilities, not on your disability.
So how can instant interviewing help in this situation?
It's all about focusing on your skills and experience and letting those speak for themselves. You don't need to lead with your disability.
So you're letting your qualifications shine through first, and then addressing the disability if and when it becomes relevant.
Right, you're controlling the narrative and making sure that you're perceived as a capable and competent candidate.
Makes sense. And if you do need any reasonable accommodations, you can bring those up later in the process once you've established a connection and they're actually interested in hiring you.
Exactly, you don't want to create unnecessary barriers early on.
The book also talks about the importance of finding a maven. What is a maven and how do we find one?
A maven is kind of like a mentor or an advisor, someone who has a lot of experience and knowledge in your industry.
Okay, so someone who can offer guidance and support.
Exactly. And they can also be a great source of connections.
So how do we find these magical mavens?
They're all around you. They could be former supervisors, colleagues, mentors, even people you admire from afar.
So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help.
The worst they can say is no.
Okay, now let's talk about turning those informational interviews into instant interviews. It's kind of like a secret mission, right?
Exactly. It's about going into those informational interviews with a dual purpose, to gather information, but also to subtly position yourself as a potential candidate.
So how do we do that?
First and foremost, be prepared just like you would for a formal interview.
Okay, so research the company, the industry, the person you're meeting with.
Exactly. Have thoughtful questions prepared that show you've done your homework and be ready to highlight your skills and experience in a way that aligns with their needs.
So you're subtly planting the seed that you're interested in working there.
Exactly. And don't forget to follow up afterwards with a thank you note and reiterate your interest.
Okay, now this next concept is one that I think a lot of job seekers kind of struggle with, temping. How can we use temping as a springboard for instant interviews?
Yeah, temping often gets a bad rap, but it can actually be a really valuable tool if you approach it strategically.
So instead of just seeing it as a temporary fix, you're using it to make connections and create opportunities.
Exactly. You're going into each temp assignment with the mindset of, okay, how can I leverage this to get my foot in the door at this company?
I like that. So you're networking, you're showcasing your skills.
Yeah.
You're essentially turning each temp job into a mini interview.
Exactly. And you're letting the temp agency know that up front, you're saying, hey, I'm looking for a permanent position. I'm using this as a way to gain experience and make connections.
So you're being transparent about your goals.
Right. And while you're on assignment, don't just limit yourself to internal job postings. Use those instant interviewing skills to create your own opportunities.
So you're networking with everyone you meet, you're attending company events, you're even reaching out to decision makers directly.
Exactly. You're turning every interaction into a potential interview opportunity.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Now, the book also talks about the importance of following up after interviews, but it's not just about sending a thank you note. It's about really lubricating the hiring process. What do they mean by that?
It's about making it as easy as possible for the offerer to say yes.
Okay, so how do we do that?
It could involve sending them additional information that supports your application, or offering to connect them with references, or even proposing a trial period where you can demonstrate your skills.
So you're going above and beyond to show your commitment and make their decision easier.
Exactly. It's about anticipating their needs and proactively addressing any potential concerns.
Okay, you've aced the interview. You're eagerly awaiting a response. What about leveraging that secretarial secret service to get some insider information?
Yes, those gatekeepers can be your best friends during the post-interview phase.
So instead of just waiting by the phone, you're reaching out to the secretary or the administrative assistant to get a sense of the timeline and the decision-making process.
Exactly. You can just casually ask, hey, I was just wondering if there's been any update on the position name role. It's a subtle way to gather intel without seeming pushy or impatient.
I like it.
And again, be friendly and respectful. They might be willing to share some valuable insights.
Okay, this next one is intriguing. The book talks about using your phone as a truth serum during interviews.
Truth serum.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's not about literally using your phone as a lie detector, but it's about using it strategically to create a psychological advantage.
Okay, how so?
Well, for example, you can use your phone to take notes during the interview.
Interesting.
It shows that you're engaged, you're paying attention, you're taking their words seriously.
Right. It also makes you look organized and prepared.
Exactly. And you can also use your phone to ask questions like, I'm just jotting down some notes here. You mentioned earlier that you're looking for someone who can insert key skill. Can you elaborate on what that looks like in this role?
Ah, so you're using your phone as a prop to direct the conversation.
Exactly. And it also creates a sense of formality and importance. It's like you're conducting a formal assessment and they're the subject of your investigation.
I like it. It subtly shifts the power dynamic.
Okay, now this next one is really thinking outside the box. The book recommends checking out the business license department at City Hall. The business license department? What in the world for?
It's actually a gold mine of information about companies that are hiring and expanding.
Really?
Yeah, think about it. Every new business in the city has to register there so you can get a sneak peek into the local business landscape and identify potential opportunities before they're even publicly advertised.
So you're getting ahead of the competition.
Exactly. You can visit the department, strike up conversations with entrepreneurs, inquire about their hiring plans.
Wow, that's a really clever strategy.
It is.
Okay.
Now let's talk about a tactic that can be a little bit controversial using the competitor card.
Ah, yes. This one definitely requires some finesse, but it can be very effective.
So it's about leveraging your knowledge of a competitor to kind of pique an offer's interest.
Exactly. Imagine walking into an interview and casually mentioning that you used to work for their biggest rival.
Talk about making a statement.
The key here is to use this information ethically and strategically.
Yeah.
You're not there to badmouth your former employer or spill trade secrets.
Right. It's about showcasing your understanding of the industry and your insights into the competitive landscape.
Exactly. You can say something like, in my previous role at Competitor's Name, I learned a lot about specific area of expertise, and I'm excited to bring that knowledge to your team.
So you're positioning yourself as someone who can help them stay ahead of the curve.
Precisely.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about interviewing with immigrant offerers. The book emphasizes the importance of building rapport and finding common ground.
Yeah, this is so important because it's about recognizing and respecting cultural differences.
So communication styles and expectations might be different.
Exactly, and it's about being sensitive to those differences and finding ways to connect on a human level.
So ask about their background, their experiences, their journey to this country.
Exactly. Show genuine interest and try to find common ground.
It's about building a relationship that goes beyond just the job interview.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about age. How can we turn our age into an advantage in the job search?
This is a big one for a lot of people, but it's all about reframing your age as an asset instead of a liability.
So instead of focusing on how old you are,
Yeah,
you're highlighting your experience, your wisdom, your track record of success.
exactly. You've seen it all. You've done it all. You have a wealth of knowledge to offer.
It's about showcasing your maturity, your stability, your ability to handle pressure.
Exactly. And you can address any concerns about your age head on by talking about your willingness to learn new things and adapt to new technologies.
So you're showing them that you're not stuck in the past. You're constantly evolving and growing.
Right. It's about proving that experience is an asset, not a detriment.
Okay, let's talk about something that I think a lot of people dread: small talk. You know, those awkward moments before an interview starts. How can we turn those into opportunities?
Small talk is so important. It's a chance to break the ice, create a connection, set a positive tone for the conversation.
So instead of just nervously checking your phone, you're actively engaging with the interviewer.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything profound. You can comment on the weather, the office decor, a recent news event.
Just be genuine, be observant, show interest.
And you can also use small talk to gather information.
Yeah.
I was reading about your company's recent expansion. That's impressive. What are some of the challenges you're facing as you grow?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. It shows that you've done your research and you're genuinely interested in the company.
Okay, let's talk about turning the tables in the interview. The book calls this the reverse interview.
I love this one. It's all about being proactive and taking control of the conversation.
So you're not just answering their questions, you're also asking thoughtful questions that show you've done your research and you're really thinking critically about the opportunity.
Exactly. And it's not about interrogating them or putting them on the spot. It's about showing genuine curiosity and engaging in a meaningful conversation.
So what are some good questions to ask during a reverse interview?
You can ask about their biggest challenges, their goals for the future, their leadership style, their company culture.
The key is to ask open-ended questions that encourage them to share their insights and perspectives.
Right. And as they're answering, listen attentively, take notes, ask follow-up questions. It shows that you're really engaged and you're taking their words to heart.
Okay, let's talk about something that can make or break an interview appearance.
Oh, yes. First impressions matter.
Big time.
What you wear to an interview can say a lot about you. It's a nonverbal way to communicate your professionalism, your confidence, your attention to detail.
So it's not just about looking good, it's about sending the right message.
Exactly. The book emphasizes the importance of dressing for the job you want, not the job you have.
Ah, I like that. So if you're interviewing for a leadership role, you'd want to dress in a way that conveys authority.
Exactly. And if you're interviewing for a creative role, you might want to add a touch of personal flair.
It's about using your clothing to express your personality and your understanding of the company culture.
And no matter what the dress code is, always make sure your clothes are clean, pressed free of wrinkles.
Pay attention to the details. Shine your shoes. Choose accessories that complement your outfit. Make sure your hair and makeup are neat and professional.
It's all about presenting yourself in the best possible light.
Now let's circle back to small talk for a moment, because even though it seems insignificant, those few minutes before the interview can actually make a big difference.
Small talk is a powerful tool. It's a chance to build rapport, gather information, and set a positive tone for the interview.
So instead of just standing there awkwardly, you're actively engaging with the interviewer.
Exactly. And again, it doesn't have to be anything deep. You can comment on the weather, the office decor, or recent news event.
The key is to be genuine, be observant, and show that you're interested in the other person.
Exactly. And you can also use small talk strategically to gather information. Like, I was reading about your company's recent expansion that's impressive. What are some of the challenges you're facing as you grow?
Right. It's a subtle way to steer the conversation towards topics that are relevant to the interview.
Exactly. And it shows that you're not just there to answer their questions, you're there to learn and engage.
Okay, let's talk about those awkward silences that sometimes happen during interviews. The book talks about turning those silences into strategic advantages. How do we do that?
Silences can be a little unnerving, but they're also an opportunity to gather your thoughts, compose yourself, and even steer the conversation in a direction that benefits you.
So instead of panicking, you're using the silence to your advantage.
Exactly. Remember, silences are natural. You don't have to fill every moment with chatter.
Sometimes a pause can actually make your message more impactful.
Exactly. And when a silence does occur, don't just sit there awkwardly. Use it as an opportunity to ask a thoughtful question or make a bold statement.
Like, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a moment.
Exactly. It shows that you're taking the question seriously.
Or, if the conversation lulls, you can use the silence to highlight a key skill or accomplishment.
It's all about seizing the opportunity to showcase your value.
Okay, let's talk about another nonverbal cue that can make a big difference: smiling.
Yes, a smile can go a long way.
It can.
It conveys warmth, approachability, confidence.
It makes you more likable, more memorable.
But it has to be genuine.
Yeah.
A forced smile can actually have the opposite effect.
So think happy thoughts.
Exactly. Let your smile radiate from within.
The book also talks about using your smile strategically to kind of influence the conversation.
Right, like if you're making a bold statement or asking a challenging question, a smile can soften the blow and make you seem more approachable.
It's about creating a sense of trust and rapport.
Exactly. And a smile can also help you recover from any mistakes or awkward moments during the interview.
Shows that you're human. You don't take yourself too seriously.
Exactly.
Okay, what about eye contact?
Eye contact is crucial. It conveys confidence, engagements, sincerity.
It helps you connect with the interviewer.
But just like smiling, you have to find the right balance. You don't want to stare them down and make them uncomfortable. The key is to maintain eye contact for about 60% of the conversation.
Okay, 60% got it. And when you do break eye contact, do it naturally. Look away briefly, nod your head gesture with your hands.
It's about creating a natural flow in the conversation.
Okay, let's talk about something that I think a lot of people get really anxious about: salary negotiations.
It's definitely a topic that can cause some stress.
But the instant interviewing approach can help us navigate this tricky territory.
It's about being prepared, being confident, and knowing your worth.
Okay, so before you even step into the negotiation, you need to do your research.
Absolutely. Know your industry benchmarks, gather salary data from reputable sources, and figure out your walkaway point.
That's the minimum you're willing to accept.
Exactly. Knowing your worth gives you leverage in the negotiation.
And remember, it's not just about salary. You can also negotiate things like vacation time, benefits, professional development opportunities.
Right. It's about creating a compensation package that meets your needs and aligns with your goals.
And don't be afraid to ask for more than you think you'll get.
The worst they can say is no.
Now, the book also talks about something kind of unexpected. It suggests turning the interview into a fun and engaging conversation, almost like you're chatting with a friend.
Yeah, I love this idea. It's about breaking down those barriers and creating a more relaxed and authentic connection.
So instead of seeing it as a formal interrogation, you're approaching it as an opportunity to just connect with another human being.
Exactly. Remember, the interviewers is a person too. They have their own hopes and dreams and fears.
So find common ground. Share your sense of humor. Let your personality shine through.
And most importantly, relax. The more relaxed you are, the more confident you'll appear.
Okay, now let's talk about bragging. How do we showcase our accomplishments without seeming arrogant or conceited?
It's a delicate balance, but it's all about framing your accomplishments in a way that highlights the value you brought to the company or the team.
So instead of saying, I increased sales by 20%, you could say, my contributions to the sales team resulted in a 20% increase in revenue.
Exactly. It's a subtle shift in language, but it makes a big difference.
And remember, always back up your claims with specific examples and data.
It adds credibility to your statements.
Okay, what about those follow-up calls after the interview? How can we turn those into opportunities to further impress the offer?
I love this idea. It's about being proactive and staying top of mind.
So instead of just calling to check in, you're using the call as a mini interview.
Exactly. Start by thanking them for their time, reiterate your interest, and then use the conversation to address any concerns they might have or highlight key skills that you didn't get a chance to mention during the interview. You can even ask thoughtful questions about the company or the role.
It's about showing that you're still engaged and you're really thinking about the opportunity.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about testimonials. They
Yeah.
can be really powerful tools for building credibility and social proof.
They're like gold, especially in today's competitive job market.
So how do we gather these glowing endorsements?
Start reaching out to people who can speak to your skills and experience, former supervisors, colleagues, clients, mentors.
And when you're asking for testimonials, be specific about what you want them to highlight.
Exactly. Like, would you be willing to write a brief testimonial about my communication skills?
So you're guiding the feedback.
Right. And once you have a collection of testimonials, use them strategically. Include them in your resume, share them on LinkedIn, bring them to interviews.
It's about making sure those testimonials are visible and working their magic.
Now, let's talk about something that can be really discouraging: rejections.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of the process. Not every interview is going to lead to a job offer.
But it's so easy to take it personally.
I know, but try to reframe those rejections as learning opportunities.
Okay, so instead of wallowing in disappointment, you're seeing it as a chance to grow and improve.
Exactly. And, sometimes a rejection can actually lead to an interview.
Really?
If you handle the situation gracefully and professionally, the offerer might be impressed by your resilience and keep you in mind for future opportunities.
So turn that rejection into a networking opportunity.
Exactly, and that's the instant interviewing mindset in action.
Okay, let's talk about the final hurdle in the job search process, negotiating the terms of your employment.
This is where all your preparation and confidence really pays off.
So it's not about battling it out with the offerer. It's about working together to find an agreement that benefits both parties.
Exactly, and the key is to be prepared, do your research, know your worth, and be ready to walk away if necessary.
And remember, it's not just about salary. Negotiate everything that's important to you: vacation time, benefits, work-life balance.
It's about creating a work environment that you're excited about.
And don't be afraid to ask for more than you think you'll get.
The worst they can say is no.
Okay, now I have to ask you about something that I found really intriguing in the book. It talks about using press releases to generate instant interview interest
Press releases.
for job hunting.
I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually a really clever way to get noticed by potential employers.
So instead of waiting for them to find you, you're putting yourself out there and announcing your availability to the world. Exactly. It's like your own personal PR campaign.
And you can do it yourself. There are plenty of free and low-cost press release distribution services online.
So you write a compelling press release highlighting your skills and experience, and then send it out to all the media outlets and industry publications.
It's a great way to get your name out there and establish yourself as an expert.
I love that idea. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different tactics and strategies for instant interviewing. But ultimately, it all comes down to one thing: believing in yourself.
You said it.
You have to believe that you deserve that dream job, that you have the skills and the experience to succeed.
And that confidence will shine through in your interactions with offerers.
So go out there, embrace the challenge, and never give up on your dreams.
The world is waiting for you.
And if you handle it gracefully, the offerer might be impressed. and keep you in mind for something else down the road.
Or even refer you to someone who might be a better fit.
Right. Turning a rejection into a networking opportunity that's instant interviewing in action.
It is. Okay, so let's talk about the last step in the job search process, negotiating the terms of your employment.
Yeah, this is where it all comes together.
It's exciting, but it can also be a little nerve-wracking.
For sure.
But with the instant interviewing approach, it doesn't have to be a battle.
It's more like a collaboration, right?
Exactly. Both parties are working together to find an agreement that works for everyone.
And just like with everything else, preparation is key.
Absolutely. Do your research, know your industry benchmarks, gather salary data, and most importantly, figure out your walkaway point.
That's the minimum you're willing to accept.
Right. Knowing your worth gives you leverage in the negotiation.
And it's not just about salary, right?
No. Negotiate everything that's important to you. Vacation time benefits, work-life balance, professional development opportunities, even the option to work remotely.
It's about creating a job that you're truly excited about.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for more than you think you'll get.
The worst they can say is no.
Exactly. You might be surprised by what they're willing to offer.
Okay, now I have to ask you about this one tactic that I found really interesting in the book. It talks about using press releases to generate instant interview interest.
Press releases for job hunting.
I know it sounds a little unconventional, but it's actually a really clever way to get noticed.
So instead of just waiting for someone to stumble upon your resume, you're proactively putting yourself out there.
Exactly, you're creating your own buzz.
And you don't need to hire a fancy PR firm to do it.
Nope, there are tons of free and low-cost press release distribution services online.
So you write a compelling press release highlighting your skills and experience and then blast it out to the world.
Exactly. It's a great way to get your name out there. Establish yourself as an expert and generate interest from potential employers.
And it puts you in control of the narrative you're shaping how people perceive you.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into instant interviewing. We've talked about everything from crafting the perfect magic for hello to turning rejections into networking opportunities to even using your phone as a truth serum.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, and we've explored some really unconventional tactics, but ultimately it all comes down to one thing: believing in yourself.
Couldn't agree more.
You have to believe that you deserve that dream job, that you have the skills and the experience to succeed.
And that confidence will shine through in every interaction.
So go out there, embrace the challenge, and never give up on your dreams.
The world is waiting for you.
That's it for this deep dive into instant interviewing. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
And most importantly, we hope it empowers you to take control of your job search and create the career of your dreams.